I am in the Walker Art Gallery in Liverpool, so let's see what they've got in the collection today. So this is a painting of Samson and Delilah, and you can see that Samson's had his hair cut and he's weakened, and the figure structure is quite interesting here because you've got this curved line. So this is interrelationship of line between the arm and the figure, and then the curve is also echoed in the shape of Delilah, with her arm pointing off over to the left of the painting, and then this curve of the dress. So it's been beautifully designed, and this particular structure here is also a circular organizational structure which holds the whole painting together. And in terms of values, all the central part is in a light value. It's balanced on the right by the light dress of Delilah, which is in a different color. It's a cooler light compared to the warmer light of the figures on the left, and that also helps to balance the painting. All the figures in the background just fall into the dark value range, so you can see them, but in fact they're very subdued. So that creates a beautiful notan structure. So just a beautifully designed painting here. And this is by a British artist, painting in the style of the French at the turn of the 19th century. So it was painted by Solomon Joseph Solomon, and he was a British artist, and it was painted in 1887. This is a painting by Louis Daguerre, who invented the daguerreotype photographic process. And he was a stage designer, and you can see that skill here. It's a beautiful example of a two-value notan and the principle of silhouette. And you can see the detail on the right-hand side of the ruined archway. Really beautiful silhouette there. This is a painting by Louis Edward Fornier, painted in the late 19th century. And it's the scene of Percy Bysshe Shelley's funeral on the beach near La Spezia in Italy. This is a beach that I paint off quite often, so it's quite an interesting scene for me. But it's a beautiful design. It's a notan design. If you look at it, basically it's three-value notan. I think if you could add the lights of the heads, it would be a four-value notan. There's a beautiful transition, a gradient in the sky from the right to the left. You can see it very gradually getting darker. There are other soft edges too in the burning wood on the beach. You can see where the smoke is rising, that creates a soft edge. So it's a wonderful example of edges and gradients and notan structure. I saw this painting and instantly recognized it because I knew the story. And living in that area of Italy for many years, you see the references to Percy Bysshe Shelley everywhere. The three friends on the left, the one on the right is Lord Byron, and Byron used to swim across that ocean between the coast on the Spezia side all the way to the Lerici side. So it's an area I know well and a story that I know quite well. Beautiful painting. This is a painting done in 1907 by Henri le Sidaner, and he's a painter from Brittany in France, and he's using a pointillist technique here. What is interesting about the painting is it's very, very subtle values, almost entirely painted in a middle value. But even so, there's a darker shape in the foreground at the bottom, which is the pillars of the posts in the River Thames to tie the boats to, and also the dome of St. Paul's Cathedral. So it's a very subtle two-value notan structure, but mostly in the middle values. What's interesting is he uses a pointillist technique, and if you look at the surface of the painting, you can see that it's very much the post-impressionist pointillist technique of painting in dots and dabs of pure colour. quite a nice moody piece of work. And again, it's quite a large painting. One thing that was interesting was he was a friend of Monet, but he didn't paint this outdoors. He worked from small sketches and did most of the work in the studio. This is a painting by John Singer Sargent, a favorite painting of mine, and he painted this in 1909, and this was after he had stopped painting so many of the formal portraits of his youth. He painted this in Corfu, and this is a Greek Orthodox priest. And interestingly, he painted that after he painted the rest of the painting. So although it's an oil painting, he's actually using quite a lot of watercolor style. And that's one thing that I often suggest to artists is work in different media, and each one will give you a different feeling and help you explore different techniques. So it's very, very watercolor-like, even though it's an oil painting. This is an artist I like, Stanhope Alexander Forbes, a British artist, 1857 to 1947. He studied at the Royal Academy schools, the leading British art schools, and then went to Paris to study. So this is actually a painting he did in France, a street scene in Brittany. It's a beautiful example of warm-cool contrast. There's another painting by Forbes, and this is the fisherman going off to the fishing grounds, and it's very reminiscent of a Homer. Beautiful design, two-value notan structure, interesting silhouette. He's used tied together with the figure at the front of the boat. He's with the hat. It ties together the shape of the sky and the shape of the sea. Linking the darks on the right, the hand of the boy leading to the boat links those two dark shapes, which creates a larger dark shape in the painting, tying it all together. So quite a nice painting. Lovely study of two figures there. Look at the careful design of the negative shapes. This is a really beautiful painting by Elizabeth Forbes. She came from Canada and met Stanhope Forbes in Newlyn, where he founded, the both of them founded an art school where she encouraged women to paint. But just a wonderful composition, and just a beautiful triangular structure is the organizational structure of the painting. A good example of counterpoint with light against dark and dark against light. A good example of shapes, if you can see the shadow shapes have been joined together. You can see the blue shape of the hat links to the shadow of the right arm of the woman, and then that links to the shadow under the arm, and then that links to the bowl. So everything linked together in a beautiful way. Just a lovely portrait here. Very nice painting. The Falling Star, painted in 1909 by Joseph Hamilton May. Very much in the tradition of Whistler. Very subdued, beautiful two-value notan. And if you look very closely at the background here, the dark line of trees creates creates a beautiful edge between the snow foreground and the sky. The actual values are much closer together in the real painting compared to the video. The camera's really exaggerated the value difference and contrast. Absolutely beautiful painting, wonderful control of edges. There's a nice painting of Corfe Castle, painted by Philip Wilson Steer in 1908, and it's a study for a larger painting, and it's really quite nice. You can see the loose brushwork, and I particularly like the way he does the clouds here, really using broad strokes, just the right value and temperature. A very nice colour sketch. This is a very interesting painting by Nicholson of the 100 Jugs. It said it was a challenge by his son to paint the subject. It's a great example of contrast of detail. You can see the quite high detail of the jugs in the foreground, but as he moves back into the distance, these jugs have much less detail, really just suggested with a few highlights. And then in the far distance, just dabs of suggestive colour to suggest the jugs. But that's a really great example of how to make a fascinating composition out of something quite ordinary. It almost looks like a giant figure painting in an interior. It's just unbelievable. Quite interesting that he was a portrait painter. This is a really interesting painting called The Fishing Nets by Jack Coburn Witherop, painted in 1939. It was painted in St Ives, Cornwall. But what's really interesting about this is the beautiful patterns that he's created and the texture. It's very much like a mosaic. And the other interesting thing about it is the use of the lines. We've got these beautiful curved calligraphic lines in the water, and then the lines of the rigging to contrast. Very nice shape design. And if you get close, you can see how the texture is created. I'm not quite sure exactly how he did it, but it's very, very decorative. Combination of decoration and painting. Really beautiful piece of work. It's quite possible that he created this texture by scraping the painting afterwards. You can see it a little bit more clearly in these areas of the painting. Once again, the contrast here is a little higher than the actual painting, so it's not quite as obvious on the real painting. In fact, here you can see this area here tends to fade into one value when you look at it from a distance, but there is that texture there to give it interest. You don't have to limit yourselves to painting standard subjects. Look at this for a new take on a familiar subject that you would never think of making a painting out of. But these are really great abstract designs. These are contemporary paintings painted in 2017 by Pete McKee, born 1966. But I think they're really great. Good example too of contrast of saturation, dominance of shape design, dominance of value, negative shapes, the use of patterning within a shape. Very contemporary subject too, and it shows that you can look for art everywhere, not just in the places where you think it only exists.